This is our webinar on Google Classroom Level 2. Thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Katie Kapler, and Megan Abbott is going to be facilitating the chat. So we are both professional learning specialists with 5-Star. During the webinar, there'll be a couple tools you'll want to pay attention to. To access the chat during the webinar, all you have to do is scroll down to the bottom of your webinar screen and you should see the word chat in the bottom panel. It's kind of in the center. If you have any questions or you want to see what others are asking, you can open that up and move it to the side to follow along during the webinar. And again, Megan will be really great about answering any of those questions that you might have. Right now you are muted. If at any time you wish to unmute yourself, you can just click on the microphone icon in the bottom left-hand corner. There's also a video camera icon near this corner. That is to turn your video on or off in case you don't want us to see your face, which most of you have already done. At the top of your screen, you should see a small green bar that says you are viewing my screen. Next to that is the word More. If you click on it, you can exit full screen and reposition the webinar window where you would like it on your monitor. You might have a panel of thumbnail videos on the right side of your screen as well, and there are icons at the top of that panel that allow you to condense those or just see the presenter's video. Feel free to adjust those however you would like so that way you can see the webinar that you want. Okay, I'll give you a second to kind of get things situated so that way we're ready to go. So like I said, today we're going to be covering Google Classroom Level 2, and there's a couple of things that we are going to be going over in this webinar. This week we'll be focusing on how to add assignments, assign work to one or multiple classes, and then grade those assignments as a teacher. We'll also kind of go into the teacher's tools on how to organize, moderate, or manage the students' work within each of your classes. I'll also be sure to show you the student view of Classroom so you can see what the students will experience on their end of things. Next week, Level 3 webinar will tackle the more advanced functions and tools of the Classroom to help make your time in this LMS more effective. It'll also provide some really great ways to facilitate collaboration between the students and you as the teacher. So we're actually going to go ahead and begin using Google Classroom. One of the first things you'll want to do is open a web browser like Chrome, and you'll want to go to the website classroom.google.com, which is your in your URL here. You'll need to sign in using your Google Apps school username and password. I'll give you a minute or two to go ahead and log in because you'll want to kind of follow along as we go through these things here today. If you guys were here with us last week and you already created a class, when you log in to your Google Classroom homepage, this is kind of what you should see. You should see a page with the class or classes that you already have created as a teacher. You will need to have a class already created to kind of practice the Google Classroom steps we're going to cover today. If you did not create a class last week, or you deleted your class because you're just kind of playing around with it, you'll need to create a new one now. And remember, it's not that hard. Actually, we can do it really quickly. So if you need to create a new class, you'll just click the plus button in the upper right-hand corner and select Create Class. And then you will want to obviously title your class. And again, you'll want to make your class title fairly specific, but if you're just kind of playing around today, you can just call it test class, which that's what I'm going to do today. You can also add a section title. So if you teach more than one section of this, if you teach like 2, 3, 4 periods of the same class, this is a great place to add that. So just for the heck of it, I'll put first period in here. And then when you're done, all you need to do is hit create. Once Classroom recognizes that you have created a class, you don't need to do anything else to your class at this point. We don't need to go in and change any of the header image or the about section or adding announcements, because today we're just going to be talking a lot about assignments. So once you've created your class, it's going to take you to your stream, which is this is kind of like your Facebook running record of what's going on in your class. Now that you have this, we're actually going to go back to our home page. And if you remember, you can do that by clicking on these 3 little white bars, your icon up here for the menu, and click on home. And here you should see any or all of the classes that you have created. You should also see under the class title that there are no upcoming assignments. And you can see that for this test demo class that I created and this other class that I created last week. Once we create and add an assignment in your class, this will change, and you'll know that you and the students actually will know that there's an upcoming assignment. So we're going to go ahead and learn how to do that now. So to create an assignment or a task or an activity, whatever it is that you would like your students to take part in, you'll need to click the title of the class you'd like to add the assignment to. So I'm going to go into my 8th grade language arts class that I created last week, and it's going to take me to my stream. Instead of posting an announcement this time, though, you're actually going to choose assignment. And this is right under the share with your class box. So you can either make an announcement or an assignment. I made an announcement last week. Now I'm ready to do an assignment. So I'm going to click assignment, and you can see that this box changes here. You'll need to create a title of the assignment, and you can add a short description of the assignment if you would like. So your title goes here, the description goes below. While it's optional to add information here, this might be a good place to add some specific directions for the assignment or the task so the students know exactly what to do with anything that you add in here. You'll also want to be sure to choose the date if the assignment is due. So you can select a due date down below. By clicking on this, it brings up a calendar, and you can select the date that it's due. For example, lost my spot. If there is a specific time that you want to actually add something, so if something's due at the end of the school day, for example, you could change this time to like 3:30, not a.m. Probably that would be a little late for the students, some of them. You could make it 3:30 p.m., which would be down here. You can also type in a specific time if you have something specific here. Or if you want it just turned in by the end of a specific day, you could always change it to 11:59 p.m. So again, you can type in a time here to make it specific to what you would like. If you do not want a time, if you don't feel like that's necessary, you can always hit the X button and it will take away the time. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of start creating an assignment. And so I'm going to title my assignment Google Classroom Student Tutorials. And I'm actually going to give some specific directions because there's a few things I'm going to want students to do. I'm going to want students to read the attached PDF, which I'm going to add on in just a minute. I'm also going to want them to watch the YouTube video I'm going to show you how to add. And then finally, I'm going to want them to respond. I'm going to want them to respond to the attached Google document paragraph. Now, again, this isn't necessary. You don't have to add information here, but once you start adding multiple things in, it's going to be helpful for you to have some specific directions for the students to follow. I'm going to change my due date just to the end of the week, and there we go. Now, to actually attach anything or to add something to the assignment that you would like the students to complete, you can do a couple of things. You can add an attachment from your computer, which is the paperclip. You can add something from your Google Drive, which is your Drive triangle. You can attach a YouTube video, so the rectangle with the play button, or you can actually just link to a specific website that you would like the students to visit in case they need to find information, or it's a useful website for you that they're doing research on. Whatever it is that you would like to link to, that's how you can do that there. So for this assignment, I wanted the students to read the attached PDF, which I'm going to actually attach right now. So it's on my desktop on my computer. So I'm going to click the paperclip. I do want to upload it, so I'm going to select the file from my computer, and like I said, it's on my desktop, so I'm going to select Google Classroom Students, and then I'm going to click Upload. Now you can see that this is uploaded here. Okay. I also want to add a YouTube video because there's a video that I want my students to watch. And luckily, I already have found it, so I do have the URL. I'm just going to copy that right now. And I'm going to go to my YouTube button. Now, if I didn't already have the URL, which I do, I could always just search for it. So I could search for student Google Classroom tutorials. And I could search for it and I could try to find it that way. But I do have my URL, so I'm just gonna flip over to this tab and I'm just gonna paste the URL to my YouTube video that I would like. It pops up here just to make sure it's the right one, and when it is, I click Add. And the last thing that I'm going to do is, because I wanted the students to actually respond to a question that I might post to them after they've read something and watched a video, I'm actually going to add a Google Doc that I already have created in my Google Drive. So I'm actually going to go into my Drive here, and I know that I have added that, let's see, in my folders here. I'm going to find it. Nope, that's not where I saved it. Well, when you have it saved, you'll be able to know where it's at. Where did I put that? Here we go. Here's my example document. So I found it, and I go ahead and I attach that, and now that this is here. You'll notice, though, before I hit assign or before I go ahead and move on with this, you have the ability to change the permissions for your documents that you add. Now, I'm adding a PDF, which I'm not worried about students doing anything with because it's a PDF, so they can't really change it. So I don't have to worry about this section over here. However, this Google document here could be edited by students if I do not necessarily change the settings that I have. So you have three options when you add something from your Google Drive. You have students can view the file, students can edit the file, and then make a copy for each student. The students can view the file. This is a good option if you want all the students to be able to view your file but not be able to modify it in any way. So this is ideal for study guides or like generic handouts that the whole class would need access to, but you don't want them to change the original. So like directions to something specific. If you want students to edit the file, you can choose this if you want all the students that you share this with in your class to be able to actually edit this document that you have created. This would be fine for like a collaborative class project where many students might be working on separate slides on the same Google presentation, or maybe they're adding links to useful websites that they find for like a big research project. If they're brainstorming ideas about something, this might be an ideal option. Be aware though, if you do select this option, students will be able to edit and change anything that you have actually created in this document. Any directions, any tables, anything that you set up, students will be able to edit. The last option is make a copy for each student. If you pick this option, Classroom will automatically make a copy of the original file for each student in your class and give them editing rights to that file. However, the teacher's original document remains intact and the students have no access to your file. So what it will do is basically eliminate the step of students logging into their Google Drive, finding the document, then going to File, make a copy, and making a copy themselves. It kind of saves them some time because it automatically will do this if you select this option for the students. This is a really good option if you want to quickly send out a paper that has like an essay question on it for students to work on, or like a digital worksheet where students fill in the blanks for their own answers. Again, like I said, this saves a lot of time for the students, and this is probably an option that a lot of teachers would use most often. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to select make a copy for each student because I don't want people to edit my question, my reflection that I'm going to have students do for this assignment. And again, right before I'm not ready to click assign yet because there's one more thing that I'm actually going to be looking at. If you teach multiple sections of the same class, like first, second period of language arts, third and fourth period or social studies, whatever it is, you can actually give this assignment to multiple classes without having to make the assignment in each and every class, which saves you some time, and it's great. So all you have to do is click this little drop down menu and you can see any of the classes that you have already created here. Now, if you only have one class created, you will not have this option. You won't have this drop-down menu, but because there's 3 classes in our account here, I could select any of these that I would like to assign it to. So I'm going to assign it to my 8th grade language arts class, and I'm also going to assign it to my test demo class here. Once I've done this, once I've kind of made sure that I have everything the way I want, and I've kind of gone back through to double check, yes, it's assigned to the right classes, you can go ahead and click assign. You should be able to see the assignment in your stream once you've done this. So now it's in your stream. My announcement from last week was here. Now here's my assignment. Once you do this, you will be able to kind of see how many students are done with the assignment, which none of them are. Obviously, I just assigned it. And then how many are not done. And there's only one student, me, technically, enrolled in this class, so it shows that I am not done with this assignment. If you realize that you forgot to add something important or you want to make changes to the assignment after you hit assign, you don't have to delete it. You can always go back and edit your assignment by clicking these 3 little dots here. Remember, we talked about that last week. You can go back and you can edit your assignment, or you can delete it if you added something that you didn't really need or want. Please know, though, once kids get in here and start working on these assignments and you start grading them or you start going through them, if you delete an assignment that students have already been in, it will delete all of their grades and the work and the submissions that they have added as well. So kind of be careful about deleting assignments. For now, if you're just testing things out, it's not a big deal. You can kind of play around with this. And if you make something today and you don't want it, feel free to delete it. Click away. You're not going to hurt anything. But one other thing that I feel like it's important for you to know is as soon as you click assign, any student in the class can view the assignment, and anything that you have added within this assignment shows up for them. So unfortunately, there's not a hide from student view option at this time. We're kind of hoping that Google Classroom will make that update soon so you can, add assignments, multiple days ahead without students actually working ahead if that's what you need. So right now, I'm going to kind of pause for 2 or 3 minutes so you can go ahead and create your own assignment. Try adding some documents from your computer or Google Drive. Hey, even get crazy and add a video or a link. If you have any questions while you're adding your assignment, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or it looks like some of you are posting in the chat, so we'll kind of take a look at that now. So I'm seeing some questions in the chat about using this for like meetings or setting up things like for administrators can create a classroom where teachers can access agendas and stuff. Yeah, that's a great way to do this. It doesn't necessarily have to be strictly for a class. John asked, if the setting for an assignment is can view, can the students still make a copy? Yes, absolutely. The students can always go into their own Google Drive and then they can make a copy of it that way. It just saves them a step if you want them to actually edit it or do something with it later. Yeah, someone else asked too if Google Classroom was available if you have a personal account, and it's a bummer. No, you actually have to have a Google Apps for Education account, and that's the only way that you can actually get in there. And there's a question about not seeing the webinar last week. Is there a way that I can get the information I missed last week? I believe that the recordings are posted on your 5-star website, Megan. Is that right? I'm not sure.
Yes. If you know your 5-star website, the recordings should be on that website, and you should have access to all of the webinars we have done since the beginning of this year. We've done webinars on Drive, Docs, Forms, and now Classroom. If you don't know your 5-star website, then I'm going to ask you to, if you don't know who your 5-star contact person is, ask an administrator. They should know, and then they should be able to contact the 5-star contact for your district and figure out what your 5-star website is. So if your school is a new client, it might be a week or two before your website is ready, but they are placed on the website that your school has through 5-star. If that makes sense.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions about creating an assignment or attaching anything to it before I move on? My Big Campus has the ability to assign individual students within a class. Does Duke Google Classroom have the same capability? Yeah, that's a good question. You can only assign it to an entire class. Now, this is something I thought about though, because if there's a specific document that you only want, maybe 5 students to work on, or if they're working on groups and each group is working on something else, you always could attach those documents here and just have those students access them, or you could just share it like the old-fashioned way in Google Drive with the students who need it, and have them find it that way. So they can turn in whatever you need, as long as you create a spot for them to turn in work. That's okay. But at this time, that you can't assign specific work to only certain groups of students, which is kind of a pain at this point. Okay, I'm going to kind of go in at this point, and I'd like to show you the student view of what it looks like now that an assignment has been created. When a student logs in, they will actually see all the classes that they are taking. So I'm going to show you what this would look like from a student perspective. Okay, here I'm logged in as a student, and I have already joined my 8th grade language arts class. So this is the class that I wanted to join and take. And remember, it's pretty easy for a student to join a class. All they have to do is go up to this little plus sign here, and then they click join class. And once they click join class, they just have to enter the code, which is the easy way to actually go ahead and get students in your class. Because I've already joined one, this shows here, especially here, that I'm enrolled in 8th grade language arts, and this is the class that I am taking. I also can see under my upcoming assignments, because an assignment has been created, that there is something coming up. I do know that there's work that's going to be going on. To go to the assignment as a student, I can click on the title here, and obviously it's a link. They would take me directly to my assignment, or I could go to my class stream. So I could click on the title of my class, and I could see it's posted here as well. Once I actually go ahead and click the title of my class or my assignment here as a student, it'll take me to the place where I would do my work. Students have 2 tabs here. They have their instructions, or they have your work. Students can kind of toggle through these, and I know my classroom is loading here. Yes, it is taking longer than usual. I see that. Thank you, Google Classroom. Okay. So here's my instructions. And again, I can see everything that the teacher has uploaded and told me to do. That's all here. And then when I'm ready to do my work, I would click on the Your Work page. Students also can find their assignments a different way. They can, in their home menu here, they can click on Assignments. And in this way, they can see anything that they have to do, their to-do list, and anything that they have already done and submitted. So this kind of shows the students work that they have not yet completed or have already completed. And they can search this through all of their classes, or if they have multiple classes inside of here, which some students might, they can just select one of them to view. So that way they are just focusing on one class at a time if that's what they would like. To complete their work, so actually I'm going to go back to my assignment here so I can get in there. Okay, to complete the work, students have the ability to do a couple of things. They can add documents, they can add something from their drive, they can link to a specific website, or they can upload a file from their computer depending on the assignment instructions. They can also create something if they need to create a document, a presentation, a spreadsheet, a drawing, whatever it is that you've asked them to do for their assignment, they can do those things here. Because the Google Classroom, the assignment I added has an associated Google document with it, I can actually open that document directly from this page rather than opening a new tab, going into my drive, finding it in my drive, opening it up, making a copy, because the teacher has already done that for me, which saves a lot of time. So I could just go ahead and click that, and it would open a new tab for me, and it would take me directly to my document. So example, type your paragraph here, whatever your directions are, whatever it is that you want them to do, it takes them directly to their document. Whenever I finish my work, all I have to do is click Turn It In. And this is where students would turn in their work. Pretty easy for them to do. Once a student turns in their assignment, the status of their work changes over here, because right now it says not done. It would change to done with a timestamp of when it actually was submitted. So if a student needs to make corrections or submit, if they accidentally submit the wrong assignment or something, they do have the option of unsubmitting if needed. And they can also add any private comments to you as a teacher about the assignment if needed. So let's say I'm working on this and I'm 2 hours late. Sorry, it's so late. My mom had to go to the hospital, or whatever other excuses some students come up with. They could post that here, and it would also be sent to you as you would get that as a teacher. Believe it or not, it's your choice as the teacher at this point, I think. Okay, any questions about the student view so far? About what this looks like? Okay, I'm looking at the chat. And you're saying, how could I look at, how could I get in here and see what it would be like for a student? There's a couple of things you could do. You could always do like a test with like another teacher. You guys could join each other's classes and kind of play around with that way if you wanted to get in, do it. Megan said maybe ask your tech department to create a student account that you could always get in and play around with. One thing you always could do too is you could always enroll or log in if you know your students' usernames and passwords, which some teachers have access to. You could always go ahead and do that too. Megan also suggested having some students test it out with you, always a good option. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my teacher page so I can kind of continue on with what we're working on here. Okay, so now I'm back at my teacher screen, and I'm going to actually go back to my home page, my teaching assignments here. I'm going to go back to my home. Okay, so again here, because I've assigned something, you can see upcoming assignments as well. Like a student, you can always view any and all assignments that you've created in all of your classes by clicking on the 3 white lines and going to assignments. You can do that same way. you will see, instead of done or to do, you will see to review and reviewed, meaning like you haven't necessarily gone in and checked to see if work is done, or you can change some of these to reviewed, like you've already looked at the work, it doesn't need to be looked at again. In both cases, no matter where these are at, you can see the number of students who are done or not done with the assignment. So you can go ahead and see that in this class, the math class, someone is done, and the other classes, nope, they still have work to do. Now, to actually go to the assignment that you created, and you're ready to go ahead and start grading any work that students have done, you can actually click on the title again, and you can see the work of any student in your class for this particular assignment. So obviously, I am the only student. You can see my private comment that I had added here, and I'm not done because I hadn't necessarily submitted it. So I can see that it's ungraded here. This is where you can actually go ahead and adjust the point value of your assignment. So if you want your points to be 100, 50, 21, that's fine. If you want to make it an ungraded assignment, you just want them to submit something to show that they were participating, whatever, that's fine. You can also type in. So like, let's say I wanted this to be a 7-point assignment, and it asks, are you sure you want to update this? Yes, I do want to update this. I would like this to be 7 points. So all you have to do is click your drop-down menu, type in or select your option, and it will change your points for you. But at this point in Google Classroom, you can only add whole numbers. You can't add like a decimal point. So like to have 7.5, you couldn't do that. And you also cannot enter letter grades at this point. All it does is give points. So I'm actually going to go back, and I'm going to quickly, I should have submitted that last time when I was in there. I'm going to submit the assignment so you can see from my student view here that I've submitted something. So, okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to click on my document, and I'm basically just going to type my answer. Okay. And students can actually turn things in 2 ways. They have this really awesome option up here. They could just click turn in on their actual document, or they could go back to the turn in button. Either way, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to click my turn in button here on my document, and it's going to take me automatically back to my class. So it's going to say, are you sure that you want to turn this in? And I'm saying, yes, I would like to turn in my assignment. So that's turned in, it's done. I have my timestamp. Okay, great. Let's go back to our teacher view. So that way we can actually go ahead and grade this assignment. We can actually play around with that. To actually go ahead and grade an assignment, all you have to do is click on the student's name, and it will drop down anything that they have added in there for you. So you can see the attachments or the documents that they've added. And so I worked on this document, I turned it in. There's submission history. So if I had submitted this multiple times, I could see the day and the time that had happened. And also a place to add their grade. You can also add private comments to the student about their specific assignment. So if I wanted to go ahead and grade this assignment, I would click on the document, I would open up my student's work, which, geez, Katie, this is pretty bad. You didn't write a paragraph, you only wrote 2 sentences, clearly not 8th grade level work. Not so good. So at this point, I would say that this is where I would enter their grade. All you have to do is click. I would give them 1 point. That's not acceptable, right? I would probably even add a comment. This is not your best work. But on the flip side, obviously, if you had a student who did a really great job, you could always say, this is really fantastic work. I really like what you did in the second paragraph. Thanks for going above and beyond, whatever it is. These are private comments. They only go to that student. So whenever I'm ready for the student to see that, I would just click post. Once you actually add a grade, you will notice that there's a notification telling you that this assignment has not been returned to the student. So the student does not see this grade yet because you have not given it back to them. You can return assignments one by one. So like if you are doing just one kid at a time, that's fine. Or if you want to go through and grade all of them all at once, you can return their work and grades as a whole. So all you have to do is click this checkbox here next to students, and it would select all of them. And then whenever you were ready, you would click return. Now, it asks you, when you return this assignment, the student will be able to edit the return files and you will be able to comment on them. And then if you have any other feedback that you want to add to the students, you could add that here. Again, that's optional. You click return. And now that their work, this has been returned to the student. Now, one thing that I have found is kind of challenging or it's kind of tricky. If you leave this page without returning the assignments, the grades will not be saved. So the one thing I found is, let's say you want to start grading, so you have 100 students in this one class, and you grade 50 of them, and you want to take a break, and you leave this page. Unfortunately, the grades do not save. So you actually have to return whatever it is that you have graded, so that way your work is not lost. So that part is kind of a pain here. All right. In the chat, I see, if it's a writing assignment, can the teacher comment within the Google document as well as the personal comment section? Absolutely. Once you open this document back here, you can do everything that you would normally do in a Google document. So if you wanted to leave, if you wanted to comment on something, you absolutely could do that. You could just add a comment and say, good job. You could actually edit the document, so you could type on it. Or if you have some of the really cool Google add-ons, you could even add like voice feedback for the student. You absolutely can do that. All right. Any other questions at this point? I know I'm going over a lot really quickly. Okay. So at this point, the assignment status says returned. And so be aware that whenever you return an assignment to the student, you no longer have editing rights, so you can't actually like change the work inside of the document, but you can still comment on it. However, if you go in here and you're like, oh shoot, I made an error in their grade, you can edit the grade or add further comments if needed. So let's say I'm like, man, I messed up. I didn't mean to give this student a 1 out of 7. All you have to do is click the pencil. I just change this to a 2 or whatever it is that I decided that I would like to change their grade to. And now their grade is changed. And the great thing is you don't have to return this again. It automatically shows up as the new grade for the student. So that way they don't have to go in, you don't have to go in and return it again at this point. When the assignments are returned to students, students will receive an email notification of this. But the problem is a lot of schools don't use the Gmail function within their schools. So students will actually have to be pretty diligent about going in and checking back their assignments and their grades and their classes to see if work has been returned to them. That's the hard part, I think. But a really good, something that you could always do is you could always kind of make it a habit for them to go in at the beginning of every class, check their work, check their classes, and that's just kind of, their do now or their bell ringer or whatever it is to get them in the habit of doing that. So one other thing too is if a student accidentally submits an assignment, you don't have to grade it. You can always just return the assignment to them without a grade and make a comment like, this seems unfinished, or this isn't necessarily the right assignment, double check, and that way you can do it that way. So I'm going to actually show you what this looks like on the student end in just a little bit. I'll kind of go back to my student account to show you what it looks like once a student gets in a returned assignment. And I know you can't actually grade an assignment at this point because you don't have any students, but I'm going to kind of pause here for a few questions. In the future, like I said, if you wanted to, you and another teacher could always join each other's classes to test out these features, so that way you could see both points of view. If you do have any questions about this, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can post them in the chat, which it looks like a lot of you are doing. Okay. So I have a question. So can you see me making this work with first graders somehow? And Megan replies back, you could create an assignment that has them do their spelling words, or has them do, their sight words. That would be great. One other thing that you could always do is if you have websites that you want them to visit for the class, all they have to do is go in and click on the link that you have added for the assignment. It doesn't actually have to be like an actual assignment that you grade. It could just be a website that you want them to visit. They absolutely can just go ahead and click on the links. That's a really good way to use that as well. Students, I mean, even as first graders too, even if you're just having them like upload a picture, if they took a picture of something, they could always upload that and turn that in as well. First graders, you'll have to show them definitely a few times, but they will catch on if this is something that you feel like would be helpful to you as a teacher. Okay. John says, if you make a change to the grade, are the students notified of the change? And I believe they are notified that they have a change. And like I said, I think it goes through their email, but like I said, also a lot of classrooms, a lot of schools don't use the email. So that's something that they would, have to kind of be aware of. Okay. Any other questions about grading the work? Okay. Within this, before I show you the student view, I want to show you just one other thing here. Within this student work tab, you can also do a few other things. You can choose to email one or few or all the students if they have access to their Gmail account. So if you just need to remind them about turning something in because it's due in 2 hours and they clearly haven't started, you could do that. You could view the Google Drive folder, which we'll go into in a little bit. And all of the assignments that you make go into this folder. So I'll show you that in a little bit here. Or you can actually download the grades of the assignments to a CSV file, which is kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. The Drive folder, so if this is where this goes automatically to your Drive, this option allows you to open any and all of the students' work within Drive. So if I click on this, it's actually going to take me into my Drive, and it's going to be the assignment name. And if you look here, it's my Drive, the classroom folder that was automatically created every time you make a class. We kind of talked about that last week. My class name, and inside of my class is my assignment folder title. So that's where this lives. So anytime you make an assignment, it automatically makes a file in your Google Drive account and puts any work that students submit or turn in into this file. So you can see here that I have submitted this. It's my name because I'm the student, and it shows who the student is. So this is a really great way to see if students have turned stuff in or not, kind of just a quick check off, whatever. This kind of eliminates the no name papers, like, oh, I turned it in, it just didn't have my name on it. That kind of gets rid of that because you can see who turned it in because they would be logged into their own Google Apps for Education. The other option was to download as a CSV file. So if I decided to do this, I could download all the scores. If I had all my students' scores in here, I could download the scores for this assignment. Or if I wanted to, I could download it for all of the assignments. And this would turn it into an Excel spreadsheet. So like if you wanted to, kind of get a glance at how many students passed your test, this would be a fine way to do it if you needed to export your grades a different way. Okay. Any questions on those functions there before I go back to our student view? Let's check our chat here. Yeah, someone's asking, will it send it to their classroom or their Gmail account for school? And it will only email to the account that's linked to their classroom. So their Google Apps for Education account that the school sets up, that's what it would go to. Yeah, so yeah, you're saying that Gmail is blocked, right? And like I said, a lot of schools do block that. Students can't access their Gmail's account, so it's not very useful to necessarily worry about the email notifications. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and flip back to my student view here. Okay, and so here I'm going to go back to my home. So here I am as a student, and I know that a teacher has, updated my assignment. So I'm going to click on my assignments. My to-do list is empty now because I already have done my assignment. So I can click in my done, and in my done folder, I can see that I now have a grade, and I also have a comment from a teacher, which can be indicated by this little chat icon here. So if I click on this, it'll take me to my assignment. It'll come to my details. Here I can see from my teacher, ooh, this is not your best work. Yikes, probably should have tried harder. Not so good. And I can also see my score and the time that it was added. I can also, if I was at my home page, I could go to my stream, my home stream here, and I could see that my assignment has been returned. It shows me up here in the corner. There's a little check mark, and it says returned, which would show me, hey, I probably need to go in and check my grades because I didn't necessarily get any notification that, man, my grades were done. Students can always open their assignment this way too by clicking on the open. It takes them to the same spot, to the Your Work tab. And at this point, students have the option to resubmit their work. So if they wanted to turn it back in or update it or whatever, they could do that by clicking the resubmit button. This is a really great option if you're allowing multiple resubmissions, like based on teacher feedback. So if they're writing multiple drafts of an essay or they're working on different forms of presentation and you don't want to grade until the final thing is submitted, that this is a good option because you can see the back and forth comments and feedback that you're providing for your students. Do remember that it might take some reminding for students to get used to checking their to-do list or their returned work. Like I said, it just might be something that they get in the habit of. You remind them every day at the beginning of class, log into your Google Classroom account, go to your class stream, read through any announcements, look for any upcoming assignments, check and see if anything has been submitted to you. And once you do that for a while, they will get in the habit of doing that, and hopefully that will not be something you have to worry about reminding them to do all the time. Do you have any other questions over the student view of returned assignments or anything else that we have covered? If you do, again, feel free to unmute yourself or you can post them in the chat, which you guys have been awesome at doing tonight. Let's take a look. Jim says, in order to resubmit, does the teacher have to grade the assignment? Or if they accidentally hit the turn in button but have more content to add, can they resubmit? Yes, it does not have to be graded. Students can resubmit at any time. So if they go ahead and hit submit and they realize, oh shoot, I forgot to attach that document, they can always go back and edit just the same way that the teachers do as well. They can do it as many times as they need before a teacher grades it. Oops. Any other questions about student view, about adding assignments? Okay, I'm gonna flip back here. John says, did you cover resubmitting? I can actually show you how to resubmit if that is helpful. So once a student has turned in something, this is their view, and they will see the resubmit button. So if they want to actually go back and do something. So I didn't do a very good job on my paragraph here. So I could open my document back up, I could go back and I could, you know, add a bunch of more information. Here's my really great paragraph. It's full of detail, awesome word choice. Oh yeah, I can indent because I know my teacher likes that. And then I can turn it in again. Same thing that I did last time. I can hit turn in. And again, it will go back to the teacher's view as needing to be reviewed because it's something that hasn't been looked at as you as a teacher. And again, you can see now that it has been submitted. If they're like, oh shoot, I turned in the wrong thing though, they can easily unsubmit. So they can go ahead and click the unsubmit button. And then if you need to add a note like, sorry, attached the wrong thing, they can click unsubmit and it will draw it back from the teacher. John asked a good question. Can the teacher limit the number of times it can be resubmitted? I don't know if Google Classroom has a setting. I haven't found one, or I haven't seen one that limits that. But you always could be strict about your due dates. Look, like I will accept, first drafts up until this point, and then final drafts up until this point, and after that, I'm not checking it anymore. Whatever it is, you kind of have to play around with that. I will look into that though, about seeing if there is a setting for that. At this point, I don't know of any. Okay. I'm going to go back to my teacher view here. And at this point, this is kind of, oh, Jim has another question. Does it show the time of each submission so you could check the number of submissions? Absolutely. So if I'm in my teacher account, so I can go in here and I can click on the student and I can click on see submission history. And this will show me every single thing that the student has done, where they turned it in the first time, then I returned it, then they resubmitted it, and then they unsubmitted it. So you can see all of this just by clicking on the student's see submission history. This is in the student work tab of your assignment. These are really great questions. Yeah, Megan brings up a good point. She says you can see the revision history of the document when you are inside of it. Yeah, so if I wanted to actually pull up the document that the student had done, and I wanted to see all of the work and when it was done, I could go to File, and I could go to See Revision History, and this would show me any time that the student had been in the document, what they had worked on. It shows me specific things that was done at certain times, and so you can easily see how far along that they were when they were finished or not finished. So someone else asked, I have seen my student submit an assignment and it doesn't get it. How often does this happen? I have never heard of this happening in Classroom. I don't know of things going wrong very much in Classroom, but again, I haven't necessarily used this very much in a classroom with students. I've just kind of been playing around with it here as your trainer. So in Google Docs, it might be, and that's something else too, is if a student was working on it in a Google document, it does have the timestamps within the revision history, so they could easily go in and see, they could show their teacher, look, I had it done, here's my timestamp, it didn't submit or whatever it is. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up the final slide here. I know it's getting close to closing time. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I hope it was beneficial for you. The link to the feedback form will be posted in the chat, so you can just go ahead and click on it. Megan will put it in there for you. Or you can type it in to the new window. If you're watching the recording of this webinar at a later time, you'll just need to type the URL in that you see on your screen. I'm going to stay on just for a few minutes. If you have any remaining questions or you want me to show you something one more time, I can do that. I really, again, thank you guys for joining us, and hope you have a good evening.